My husband took the boat out on the lake. He took a handgun that I didn't even know that we owned, and... You were right. There is nothing. Nothing is after you. You're safe now. You're safe now.
At the start of the movie, we see Beth, who has recently lost her husband Owen to suicide, spending her nights devastated, drinking, and going through Owen's belongings. That night, while Beth is sleeping, she is startled awake by a sudden knock on the door. Confused, she goes downstairs to investigate, but finds no one there. Yet, she senses someone standing behind her, and when she turns to look, no one is there. The next morning, Beth notices footprints on the lakeside stairs. Perplexed, she goes down to check and realizes the footprints seem to have come out of the lake. While lost in thought, she is suddenly startled by the sound of a gunshot, which shocks her and prompts her to leave the area. Later, while in class, Beth is browsing houses on her laptop when she notices a photo of her and Owen on her desk and begins to drift off to sleep. Suddenly, a parent knocks on the door, and Beth finds a page featuring guns on her laptop. The woman enters the classroom and introduces herself as Becky, Hunter's mom. Beth remarks that she has so many Hunters this year, prompting Becky to ask how many students named Hunter she has, to which Beth replies, 3, and invites her to take a seat. Becky says, I checked the website and Hunter got a C in speech, to which Beth checks the laptop and confirms, he didn't do his last presentation. Becky insists, he said you told him he could make it up, and Beth explains, I did, but he didn't. Becky says, he came in last Thursday, to which Beth points out it was the last day of school and adds, I was out due to a personal matter. Becky remarks, we all have personal matters, and Beth replies, let's excuse the assignment and makes it a B. Becky counters, that's not what I wanted, to which Beth interrupts, revealing, my husband shot himself last Thursday. Shocked, Becky says, I didn't know that, to which Beth responds, it's personal. And Hunter's grade doesn't matter to me right now. Later, when Beth returns home, she finds her neighbor Mel there, who asks if she wants him to haul the boat away, and she responds, I'll leave it and sell it with the house. She then asks, were you shooting this morning or heard a gunshot? To which Mel replies, no, saying, if you hear it again, just give me a shout. That evening, Beth begins packing up all of Owen's belongings that remind her of him, and in the process, she finds a notebook containing a blueprint of the house. She brings the notebook out with her and starts flipping through it, and on one page, she reads, trick it, don't listen to it. Perplexed, she turns the pages, and to her shock, she discovers a reversed floor plan of their house. Later that night, while Beth is sleeping, the house's music system suddenly turns on and starts playing. Startled by the sound, Beth wakes up, and then her phone buzzes with a notification. And when she checks it, she is shocked to see a text from Owen, asking her to come down. Terrified, Beth types, who is this? And receives a reply, don't be afraid. Then, the song abruptly stops. Shaken, Beth calls Owen's number, and after a few moments, the call is answered. Gathering her courage, she puts the phone to her ear and asks, who is this? And a distorted voice on the other end responds, look out of the window. Horrified, Beth gets out of bed and cautiously approaches the window, and to her shock, she sees Owen standing naked on the water of the lake, and as he turns to her, she suddenly wakes up, realizing it was only a dream. She quickly checks her phone and finds that she didn't receive any text from Owen's number the night before. She rushes to her car and pulls out Owen's phone, checking to find that no texts were sent to Beth from that phone either. After this, she starts scrolling through the photos on the phone, when her attention is drawn to one particular image, and she zooms in to examine it more closely. Beth shows the picture to her friend Claire and asks, is that me? Claire looks at it and confirms. Beth takes the phone back, and Claire adds, it's either you or a woman who looks a lot like you. But Beth says, I don't have that blouse. Claire gently urges, don't do this to yourself, saying it's you, and if it's not, There are far worse things to find on your husband's phone than fully clothed women who look exactly like you. She then asks, how do you even know he took those pictures? Saying he's not here to defend himself or explain. She then asks, why were you going through his phone anyway? And then realizing the question's insensitivity, she quickly apologizes. Beth says, I don't think we had secrets, and Claire responds, everybody has secrets, saying, don't let it weigh on you. She then adds, just remember the Owen you love, because whatever else he was that too. That evening, Beth goes for drinks with her friends and asks, do you guys believe in ghosts? Claire replies that she does, and Beth says, I think there's something in my house, like a presence, that's watching me. She also shares the strange dreams she's been having, ones that feel real while they're happening. Gary asks, like sleep paralysis, and explains that he had a buddy in school who dealt with it. And it's pretty common to feel like someone is in the room with you during an episode. Beth then asks, what about the opposite? Like when your body is awake, but your mind isn't? Heather asks, isn't that just sleepwalking? And Beth nods and asks, could that be contagious? To which Gary says no, and asks, why? Beth reveals Owen used to sleepwalk, and it started a year or two after he built the house. Gary asks, did you seriously not know that anything was wrong? To which Beth responds, no, and adds, I'm the one who was struggling with depression and dark thoughts, and Owen was the one who kept them at bay. Heather asks, did he leave a note? To which Claire says, I think we're done with this conversation, but Beth interrupts, saying, he did. She takes out the note and reads aloud, you were right, there is nothing. Nothing is after you. You are safe now. Heather asks, what does that mean? And Beth replies, not a clue, other than I was living with a crazy person and didn't know it. Claire says, I think it's time we get you home, to which Beth agrees, saying I wouldn't want to keep him waiting. When they return home, Beth shares that she was clinically dead for 4 minutes after a car accident at 17 and saw there was nothing. When Claire asks what she means by nothing, Beth says she wishes she could explain but can't. She recalls that she and Owen agreed on most things except this, as he wanted to believe in a better place. And though he almost convinced her, you can't unknow what you know. Beth repeats Owen's note. You were right. There is nothing. Nothing is after you. You are safe now. She says he admitted she was right, but now she's unsure. Claire asks, safe from what? And Beth responds, I guess we'll never know. Beth then asks if she believes in ghosts, and Claire admits she doesn't, saying she was just being nice. And when Claire asks if she wants her to stay, Beth says maybe at least until she falls asleep. Suddenly, a strange noise starts echoing through the house, followed by Owen's voice urging her to come to the door. And moments later, the electricity goes out, plunging the house into silence. Frustrated, Beth rushes out, shouting, You want to say something? Talk to me. But she gets no answer. Beth grabs a flashlight and heads outside to investigate. And to her shock, she sees several frightened women fleeing through the woods. She follows them and is horrified to witness each of them jumping into the lake. Before she can process what's happening, another girl passes by her, and Beth chases after her, shouting for her to stop. But before she can reach her, the girl leaps into the water. Breathless and disoriented, Beth is stunned to see lights on the opposite shore, and suddenly, a voice whispers, "Boat." She turns back and finds that the light from the other side has disappeared, and the voice whispers "boat" again. Beth rushes to the boat and is stunned to find blood, along with Owen's shirt and boots inside. Terrified, she starts to head back, but stops when she hears footsteps following her. Turning around, she notices footprints on the dock, and she calls out, "Owen, is that you?" But when there's no reply, she closes her eyes and says, "If you're here with me, show me." Moments later, she hears footsteps approaching and sees fresh footprints right in front of her, as if Owen is standing there. Overwhelmed, she asks, "Is it really you?" and reaches out to touch him. But suddenly, she collapses, and an invisible force places her into the boat. After some time, when the boat reaches the edge, Beth wakes up, shocked to find herself on the other side of the lake. She steps out of the boat and approaches a house, only to realize, to her astonishment, that it is a reversed copy of her house. Perplexed, she moves closer and a voice whispers, "You are dreaming." She notices a woman standing by the window, who retreats inside after some time. As Beth continues toward the house, she spots another woman in a different window, and then yet another. Moments later, Owen appears behind the woman, who angrily confronts him before storming back inside. Beth quickly rushes into the house, but to her shock, finds herself sleeping on the couch. And when she wakes up, she discovers the door is open, but no one is there. Alarmed, she quickly gets up and shuts the door. She then opens Owen's laptop and browses through the photos in his phone's folder. And to her shock, she finds more pictures of that girl, her face clearly visible. As she scrolls through the rest of the photos, she discovers images of several other women, some of whom she had seen in that house. Later, Beth walks into the woods and meets Mel, who asks what she's doing here, to which she says she's looking for a house. Mel tells her there are no houses out there, as it's all country forest land, to which she mentions seeing a light in a window the night before. She then says anyway, "It's doing me good to get some air," and begins leaving. But Mel stops her and insists she's not well, saying she has been through a lot lately, more than she deserves, and for his own peace of mind, he would rather not have her tromping around out here in the woods on her own. He invites her for lunch at his place, to which she says that sounds nice, but maybe in a little while, and then she walks away. After some time, Beth finally finds the house, now in an unfinished condition, and she becomes convinced that whatever she experienced the previous night was not a dream. She enters the house to investigate and finds a strange statue there. Beth confronts Mel about the statue, accusing him of trying to keep her out of the woods. She asks about the house in the woods and what Owen was building, to which Mel denies knowing, but recalls seeing Owen wandering the woods at night. Beth asks why he didn't tell her, to which Mel explains that Owen asked him not to. Mel reveals he once saw Owen with a woman, and though he thought it was Beth, but it wasn't. Later, Owen returned late, smelling of alcohol and covered in mud, claiming he'd found a way to manage his shameful urges. Beth presses for details, but Mel admits he never asked what the urges were. He says he wrestled with telling her, but after that, Owen seemed good. Beth returns home and discovers a book titled Care Droya among Owen's things. Inside, she finds a sketch of the same statue and learns that it's a Louvre doll, a small nude female figurine bound with 13 pins, used to bind a lover. As she continues reading, Beth uncovers that simple mazes and reversed spaces are designed to confuse or weaken dark forces. Beth finds a stamp of the seller on the book and searches it online. In frustration, she throws the doll away, but it stands upright. And then, she hears some sounds above her, as if someone is walking. Perplexed, she goes to Owen's workshop and feels as if someone is standing there, but gets terrified as the entity moves. She quickly approaches to check, but finds no one is there. The next day, Beth visits the bookstore, where she encounters a woman she saw in the pictures. Beth confronts her and asks, "Do you work here?" And she replies, "I do." Beth introduces herself, and the woman says her name is Madeline. Beth then says, "I think you knew my husband," to which Madeline responds, "I don't." But Beth counters, "There are pictures of you on his phone." She approaches Madeline saying, "The matter's been resolved," before adding, "Owen is dead." Madeline tells her that Owen came in a few times every year, and he was always friendly. "We flirted a little, and he started coming more after that. We had a few drinks, and that was it." Beth tells her to take your hair down, and when Madeline asks why, Beth responds, "Because you slept with my husband, and I'm asking you nicely." Madeline, visibly fearful, lets her hair down, but insists, "I didn't sleep with your husband, and I barely knew him." Beth shares this with Claire, who expresses concern for her, suggesting she take a step back from what she's experiencing. Beth says she felt Owen's presence, questioning why he would say there's nothing when he didn't believe that. Claire says, "Beliefs change," mentioning how skeptical Beth once was. Yet now she's saying her house is haunted, and Beth acknowledges it sounds silly when framed that way. Claire advises staying away from the lake for a while, and offers her place for as long as needed, to which Beth responds that it's not finished. But Claire reminds her that not everything gets finished, and she may never understand Owen's thoughts. Beth agrees and decides to pack a few things and book a room for a couple of nights. Beth, at her house, tells Owen that she's leaving tonight and urges him to say something if he has anything to say. When she gets no response, she laughs at herself. But just then, she hears a knock on the door. Rushing downstairs, she finds Madeline leaving, who apologizes, saying she didn't think she was home. Beth replies she is home and asks how she knew where to go, to which Madeline reveals that she has been there before. Beth invites Madeline inside, and Madeline shares that she had a dream where she was both herself and Beth, being chased by something that surrounded them. When Beth asks if it caught them, Madeline says she's not sure, as that's when she woke up. Madeline continues, recalling an afternoon when Owen invited her on a day trip. He took her to the house, and they had a drink before walking to the lake, where he showed her the other house. Beth asks if she had seen it, and she replies it wasn't much to see, but Owen was really proud of it. He showed her around and then revealed a strange statue, asking her to hold it. Beth asks, "What exactly did he do to you?" And Madeline explains that Owen held her, put his chin on her shoulder, and she felt him shake as he cried a little. Beth asks again what he did, to which Madeline admits, "I kissed him. He kissed me back, and then he put his hands on my neck and started squeezing." Beth asks if he hurt her, and Madeline responds that she asked him to stop, and he did, and then he apologized and drove her home. Madeline continues, saying Owen was afraid he couldn't hold it back, and when Beth asks, "Hold what back?" Madeline replies, "I don't know exactly, but in the end, he said he knew what he had to do and had to end it for good." She adds, "I just wanted to tell you that he clearly felt guilty about cheating on you." That night, a drunk Beth goes to the house, saying, "We need to talk, and I'm not leaving until we do." But suddenly, her leg breaks a floorboard, and she quickly pulls it out, and to her shock, she discovers a dead body beneath the floor. Perplexed, she bends down to investigate further, and is horrified to find many more dead bodies hidden there. Terrified, Beth returns to her house and calls Claire, but the phone goes to voicemail. She leaves a message, apologizing, "I should have listened to you, and I did something I shouldn't have." Next, we see Beth taking a shower when the music system suddenly turns on, playing a song. Startled, she quickly steps out, but the music stops just as abruptly. She calls out to Owen, searching for him, asking where he is, and pleading for him to come back. She then sits on the floor, crying desperately, saying, "I miss you so much." And after a moment, when she looks up, she notices the word "here" written on the fogged-up mirror. Perplexed, she stands and walks toward the mirror, wiping it off. And as she does, she hears water dripping, and when she turns around, she spots footprints on the floor. Beth moves closer, hoping Owen is there, and as she raises her hand to touch him, she can feel his presence. Beth asks, "Is this real?" And when the invisible force caresses her, she hugs it, pleading, "Hold me." The force tightens its grip on her, then pushes her back. And when she asks, "Are you really here?" the voice replies, "Yes, I am here." Beth calls Owen's name, but the force responds, "I am not Owen." Horrified by this, Beth tries to leave, but the door slams shut. She then hears a sound behind her and, turning around, sees a woman in the mirror instead of her own reflection. Suddenly, the door opens, and Owen enters the bathroom, strangling the woman. And when the woman attempts to flee, Owen slams her into the mirror. Beth turns to leave, but the force strangles her, drags her back, and slams her head against the mirror. Dizzy and disoriented, Beth finds the door open and steps out of the bedroom, but to her shock, everything is reversed. A woman then tells her to hide, and Beth spots another woman crouched under the bed. Just then, Owen drags the woman out of the bathroom, and Beth notices the entity watching Owen, which suddenly turns and starts moving toward her, causing Beth to rush downstairs in a panic. However, when she arrives, she finds Owen with another woman, being intimate, and the same entity is present in the room. The entity then suddenly appears in front of her, causing Beth to fall to the ground, and as it drags her around the house, she catches sight of Owen killing different women in various rooms. The entity finally throws Beth down the stairs, where she sees Owen sitting on a couch. She gets up and approaches him, and he turns to her, saying, "You left the night we met." Beth replies, "You're not Owen," to which he responds, "I am what you felt when your heart stopped." He asks, "Do you remember? You saw me, and I've been with you ever since." Beth asks, "What did you do to my husband?" And the entity replies, I went to him and whispered in his ear over and over to send you back, but he wouldn't. He sent me them instead. Beth says, he tricked you, and the entity responds for a while. Suddenly, Beth wakes up and quickly sits up, but as she tries to flee, the entity stops her. She fights back, but it warns, don't. And then, it lifts her into the air. Beth struggles to free herself, but the entity traps her in a position like the statue she had retrieved from the reverse house earlier. The next morning, Claire arrives at Beth's house and notices signs of a struggle. Meanwhile, in another dimension, Beth finds herself and Owen on a boat, where he's reading the note he left for her. He sets it aside and Beth watches as he picks up his gun. She asks, "Where is he?" And the entity replies, "Gone, but you already knew that." It then moves closer to her and says, "He thought he could protect you, but he was wrong, and you were right." Beth finds the gun in her hand, and the entity says, "There is nothing. There is only me." It tells her, "Come back to me." Beth points the gun at herself, but just then, Claire calls out her name. The entity insists, "It doesn't matter. Let go and come back to me." But Beth turns the gun away and returns to the real world. Claire swims to her and pulls her down the boat, leaving the gun behind. She brings Beth ashore, where Mel is already present, and helps them out of the lake. Mel asks Claire what happened, to which she replies that she doesn't know. She then asks Beth if she's okay, and Beth simply says, "I am here." Claire embraces her, reassuring her, "I've got you, and you're safe here." Mel watches Beth looking at the boat and asks, "What is it?" Saying, "There's nothing there," to which Beth says, "I know," and the movie ends here. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the chills, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a scare. Until next time, stay spooky.